John Hale.
Brad, over the course of the spring now, as you all are getting close to wrapping up, is there a player or two that maybe has made big strides or stood out that we haven't talked about, we haven't asked you about?
Um, no, I mean we've talked about most guys, but I've been uh, pleasantly surprised with the growth. Of a guy like Jalen Geiger and Taj Dotson. I think they've really uh, used this spring uh, to show that all right, they're going to be able to help us and make some plays and have an impact for us. And to have an impact doesn't always mean you're the day one starter. It means that you can play significant reps. You're going to be ready to step in at any moment. But those guys are making significant strides and pushes, and which is great because you can never have enough bodies there in the back end. And so those two are sort of two that sort of jump out for me.
Adam.
Hey Brad, when I just look at kind of Jordan Wright's production the last couple of years, you see interceptions, you see fumbles forced, you see fumble recovery, sacks, tackles for loss. He's played a good amount of stats. Obviously, he's got what seems like to me is some playmaking ability. Um, Going into his redshirt senior season, what kind of growth have you seen from him? And do you see him being a guy that can really become a consistent force and a habit creator for your defense?
Yeah, and I think we talked about Jordan a couple of weeks ago. As a guy that he has been a playmaker for us in the last 2 years. He's made some really uh, splashy sort of game changing plays, and the big thing for him, and I've challenged him, is to be that consistent, steady force, and he's also got to be the leader of that outside linebacker room, which other than him is fairly inexperienced. Uh, with JJ sort of going through rehab um, and he's taken that role on him for that. He's got to continually do it day in and day out. But really like his attitude right now, where his mindset is, and he's sort of priming himself, for the year that he knows he can have. But it can't stop right here with spring. He's going to have a big summer. Would like to see him continually put on, just a few more pounds to add that girth. And, the thing about that jack position for us is you're gonna get beat up a little bit, and you got to be sturdy. And everybody, when you think about Josh's senior year, Josh Allen, he was built sturdy and rugged so he could handle it. He could make it, through 13 games. So we're going to need that from him. And but I do think that he's got that ability to make some game changing plays for us.
Nick.
What do you want to see in this final scrimmage that you might not have necessarily seen in the first one?
Better execution. Um, I didn't think we executed simple calls the way that we should execute simple calls. I think sometimes you play defense and you make it look easy. Sometimes you play defense and you make it look hard. And I thought we made defense look hard, in the last scrimmage. And at this point in the spring, and everything's been installed, we really haven't installed anything new over the last week. Maybe a call here or there, just a tweak, but you know, it should have soaked in by now that they should be able to play and execute with pace, not just thinking about the call, but looking at the formation. Uh, Again, when you get to face the same offense over and over and over, just like they face the same defense over and over and over, some tendencies build, and they should be able to pick those out. And so that's what I'm looking for guys that, can play fast, execute the call. And then I think our tackling needs to improve. I didn't think we tackled real well in that first scrimmage, and I think we need. Hey, listen, it's really the first time we had done it for a while. You expect it to not be great, But now here it comes the second go round. I want to see ball carriers pinned to the ground.
Do guys like Square and Corker, who played a lot of reps, will they be pretty limited in this?
Yeah, we'll talk about that as a staff. You know, you always got to be mindful of that. But listen, football players also need to play. You know, and just because for the same reason we talked about, hey, it'd been quite a few months since we've tackled and we had quite a few missed tackles. You know, the more you don't play those guys, you know, the more rusty they'll get. So it's that delicate balance. You've got to be smart as a coach. You know, you need to make sure that you're coming with all your bullets. But hey, listen, those guys, what you love about them, you know, the Squares, the Corkers, the Pascals, you know, they come up and they're like, Coach, don't take me out. I want to play. I want to play. I want to play. What you want guys that love to play, and you have to drag them off the field. If a guy is raising his hand and asking to come off, he ain't wired right.
Josh Moore.
Kind of following off what Nick was asking, maybe I hope there's some things that have been encouraging. My question is, you know, what just been most encouraging this spring from what you've seen from the guys?
Well, you know what I've really liked? I've really liked their encouragement of each other. And I've probably been harder on them this spring than any other spring, and really aggressive, you know, in terms of our standards. And because I wanted to see, you know, what the response would be from above, you know, from that leadership group. Are they going to say, hey, Coach, hey, listen, could we just ease off a little bit? Or are they going to say, heck yeah, and demand it across the board? And what they've done, they have not shied away, you know, from the high expectations that I have set for them on practice day, from an effort standpoint, from an execution standpoint. And they've been encouraging younger guys that, hey, if they don't meet it, or their head starts to droop or their shoulders droop, they go and say, hey, listen, you know, let's go. Let's pick it up. But two, hey, take the coaching point and let's keep moving. And that's what you got to have, because, you know, football's an emotional game. And so I've been proud of that older group, and we need to continue that, because in summer, when those coaches aren't around, you know, it's their voice that's going to have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, so that when we show up in fall camp, that they're ready.
But that stuff you've seen from the older guys, the leadership, were those qualities those guys showed early on, or those things kind of just developed over time?
No, you know, honestly, I think it is a developed skill. You know, I think some guys have innate leadership qualities, but if you had said, as true freshmen, Square, Corker, Pascal, they were going to do their job to a T, but they may not have said boo. Well, now they're demanding in their rooms. The same thing with Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright would, for his first couple years here, you know, he was just going to be, and quite frankly, he was going to be a follower. Like, he was going to follow what was being told. Now it's, hey, listen, I'm not going to follow. I am going to be the leader. I'm going to come out in front. And now it's, hey, guys, you got to follow me. And you need that. But it's got to be a daily thing. And again, I've been proud of this older group. And hopefully that it continues, you know, when coaches aren't watching.
John Hale.
Right, when you talk about a guy like Vito playing that middle position, is that just a way to describe what he was already doing in nickel, or is that more of an outside linebacker? And I guess what kind of versatility does that spot bring to your defensive scheme? Yeah,
that medium piece, you know, we had that in our system for quite a bit. You know, whether you want to call it a nickel, whether you want to call it an outside backer, it's just that field spot is played the same But it just turns into, hey, what kind of body type do you want? Do you want a smaller, more athletic body type? If they get into 12 personnel, now you got to see if you can hold up, but you're better against a slot receiver. Hey, do you want a bigger body? We've played base quite a bit, in the past and used a big outside backer out there, and get our hands on reroute receiver. If they go to 12, you don't have to worry about it. You're already, big and physical enough to handle and hold up. You can run inside stunts with those guys. But I think that medium position, if you can find a guy that's wired right and built right, and you mentioned a guy like Vito and those guys that have some savvy. Now you can go ahead and you can match or play man to man, on a slot receiver that you can't do with an outside backer. So there's some give and take on both sides of that position, and to me it all comes down to, hey, finding a way to get the best 11 on the field, and that's what we're going to do. If it's a smaller body, it's a smaller body, and we'll account for it. If it's a bigger body, then we'll go bigger body. So, not yet, and won't be until the season.
Jeff Drummond.
Hey, Brad, you had mentioned earlier about the execution and doing the simple and routine things. How much of that, and not to offer this as an excuse, but I wonder how much of that is kind of provided by the new stuff you're seeing from the offense, the shifts and the motions, stuff that they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that, but again, when you're as many practices in as we are, it doesn't matter. We're going to see motion shifts, different formations, different run plays, different pass plays from 12 different teams. So you better learn how that technique aligns. What is your alignment, and then how do you execute it? What's your angle of departure? Where are your eyes? All that stuff, it doesn't matter. You could come out and you could go, I don't know, whatever you want to come out in. You should be able to line up into it. And, as a staff, we've poured a lot of hours into making sure we've tried to make it as simple as possible. But some things, listen, what did Coach Saban say there? The spawn of the devil or some offenses? I don't know, something like that. But they can do whatever they want to do at any moment, any time, with tempo, without tempo, from a huddle, from whatever. You better get aligned. You better know what you're doing. You better communicate with the guy in front of you, behind you, and to the side of you, and execute. And I will never lower the standard, make no excuse. Hey, if a play hits us because it attacks a weakness of the defense, that's not on them. That's on me. That's on the defensive call. But if it's because I didn't know where to align, how to align, I didn't communicate, I didn't know what to communicate, I didn't know where to put my eyes, I got, lazy eyes, I got dirty eyes, and I'm looking in the backfield instead of the guy that's blocking me. If I don't take my proper steps, right, if I don't shoot my hands, if I don't have hand placement, that's on you, and that's on the players. And the thing is that the seniors, for the majority of the part have accepted that and understand that. Some of the younger guys are still learning that is the standard. There is no but coach, but coach, but no, there is no but. But gets you beat. And so, again, I want to see that execution on Saturday.
If I could ask a quick follow-up to that, have there been a couple of guys that have kind of offered you guys headaches when you look across the line at the other side of the ball?
Well, I mean, I think Wandell's got a chance to be a good player, and but a lot of guys, have done a good job showing up in different roles, and been, the tight end group has been solid, and so, but I'll leave that to Coach Cohen to answer on anybody individually.
Dick Gabriel.
Brad, you talked to us a week or two ago about Marquand and the progress he's made, and I'm wondering, is he to the point yet where he's making other people better, commanding double teams and things like that?
He is, when, again, the big thing with Marquand, and we talked about it as we were talking about Marquand, it's consistency, day in and day out and day in and day out, and sustaining. And, he is forced, people to account for him, which is going to free up others. But he also has to continue to understand that, hey, at that position, if you're going to be the guy at nose and a dominant force and a game changer, that's what's going to happen. And the load gets heavy, at that point. And so, it's going to be a consistent pounding on him, and it's going to be imperative for him to take care of his body and maintain that, for an entire season. But yes, he's to the point where he's able to influence guys and encourage guys, and we need him to continue to stay positive, and pull guys along with him. So
consistency is conditioning.
Yeah, some is conditioning, but I think he's probably in the best shape that he's been in. Now, can he be better? Yeah, I mean, anybody that side, it's going to be a constant work for him. Shape I've seen him in since I've been here, but it's also, again, like I said, I mean, if you were told that you had to go into a fight 2-on-1 every single day, it wears on you. Well, when you command double teams, that's what that position entails. And it is not for everybody. And I think he said it when you guys talked to him a few weeks back, he said, listen, my job, a big part of my job isn't about the stats. It's about commanding the control of the middle, commanding double teams, commanding multiple sets of hands and eyes so that others can go make plays. And I won't ever forget being at the Combine one of my first years in Indianapolis, and Josh Chapman, we were doing our informal interviews, and Josh Chapman at the time was a nose guard for Alabama, and we ended up drafting him in the 5th round. But we sat down, and I asked him, I said, hey, Josh, what is your favorite part of football? And he said, in his big, deep voice, and Chappie, he's got big old hands. He's a strength coach down in Alabama right now. And he said, Coach, taking on double teams. And I was like, well, that's my nose guard right there. Because if it wasn't, you ask anybody else, defensive line guys say, hey, it's sacking the quarterback. It's getting, it's TFLs. It's an interception. It's this. You have a nose guard when he says his favorite part of the game is commanding double teams, because that makes your entire defense better.
All right, last question, Derek Terry.
Brad, I know we talked a lot about those sophomore defensive linemen earlier in spring, but just Octavius in particular, what kind of strides have you seen him make since the start of the spring practice to now?
Yeah, I think Ox has been a little bit up and down through spring, and he's one I'd really like to see have a big Saturday. He's had some practices that I've been, really excited with the progress. He's had other practices that I thought, technique, eyes, footwork, hand placement, was not up to par. And so, again, that's a continual work in progress. But what we have to remember, especially with these, younger D linemen, is that most of them have only been on campus not even a year now. And a guy like Ox who came early, but at the end of the day, he only had 5 spring ball practices last year or whatever, how many we had. So that advantage didn't really have a cumulative effect. So, we're still in that process of growing. Again, you hear me say it repeatedly, is consistency. Consistency. Because that's what it comes down to. Yeah, you can play great against Mississippi State, and then you can play great against Tennessee, but then if you don't show up and play consistent again, a performance like we had in that next week against Missouri. And so it's got to be week in, week out, mentally strong, pushing through injury, not, you're hurt or you're injured. And if you get a little ding and you can push through it, then you push through it. You're mentally stronger than your opponent. And it's a constant battle. But again, it's one that we're willing to wage, and our guys are taking it head on. Are we perfect? No. As a coaching staff, are we perfect? No. But we're going to come back the next day and we're going to do it again.
All right, Coach, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.